I think we could survive now learning how to make an apron, or putting the muffins in the oven, or
Right.
They didn't teach you anything about birth control, but they were teaching you a lot about how to make a pancake.
It's especially critical for these kids who are destined to become diabetic unless they learn it. So, you know, parents, if for nothing else, you need to learn it for your children. But I'm voting for you for president if you're going to start teaching that in schools.
Well, I think I could find some people who would maybe create an organization that would get some grants that would do it. Because I'm not a doctor. I'm listening to you using words.
It's happening.
Yeah.
And it's happening in Portland. And I hope it spreads like wildfire.
Well, this is why we're having this show. And this is why this show goes on YouTube. It goes around the world. We've got 35 different websites and about 15 countries that listen to this show now. I'm so proud that we can bring the quality of person like yourself to educate, because this is what the show's about, is to give possibility to things you don't know that you don't know, right? Okay, moving on, let's talk about the basics of a good diet.
The basics of a good diet. I will tell you about the basics of a good diet. Now, if you're diabetic, you need a different diet. That's more like a 911 emergency medical diet. That's what you need.
That's what I hear.
And so the one I would describe for a diabetes patient would be different than the one I'm about to give you. Because the one I'm about to give you is one that is the keys to freedom from suffering from the cocaine sugar addiction, and it'll help you lose weight, and it'll keep you in that zone where you don't have to rebound and gain it back, and it really works. And it's going to give your body the most optimal nutrition that you need to be healthy by, to have your brain available by, to have...
Like force energy.
to
have
any
energy.
life force. Okay?
Exactly.
So the basics of a good diet, they start with phytonutrients. We need 5 to 9 servings of vegetables and fruit in a day. If you're diabetic, it has to be more vegetables than fruit. But we need that many. A serving is considered a half of a cup. And so that's the basics.
Yeah.
And that should cover about half of your plate for each meal. And that includes breakfast. So then comes lean, clean sources of protein. And I don't mean meat products that have been fashioned into shapes and held together with sugar and preserved with MSG and other preservatives and flavorings. I mean lean, clean sources of protein. They can be vegetarian, they can be grass-fed, but they need to be lean, clean sources of protein. Then, from there, you have to look into the area of carbohydrates.
Yes.
You need to avoid simple carbohydrates and have fibrous carbohydrates.
There's a big difference.
The difference is the fibrous coating around the grain that this food came from. If the fiber has been taken off of the grain, what's left is sugar. And then it gets further simplified into a powder, and the powder then gets fashioned into some other food shapes that usually have sugar added to them in some form or another. So you have to choose for fibrous carbohydrates where whole grains are involved. Then I also want to emphasize that you have to completely avoid sugar.
Completely.
Almost. I'll tell you completely except for a little, but completely for a while until you get out of the craving stage. And then we'll talk more about the 90% rule.
Okay.
But I recommend completely avoiding sugar until you stop cravings, the cravings at all.
How long could that take in reality?
If you went 7 days without any sweet flavors, you would break it then. If you went a month and the only sweet flavors you had were fruits and carrots, you could probably do it in a month that way. But 7 days with no sweet flavors, you'd be okay.
Is there any withdrawals of symptoms?
Absolutely. People who come off of sugar and I know this because I walk people through the HCG diet.
Yeah.
The first few days, they are usually having headaches.
Really?
And fluish kinds of symptoms, as you're having withdrawal from a substance that acts like an opiate in your body.
Wow.
So it usually can take the shape of joint pain and digestive upsets too. Okay. But so back to basics. Fibrous carbohydrates and good oils. You've got to have good fats in your diet. No trans fats, no hydrogenated oils. They're horrible for you, and they hurt every cell in your body. So we want you leaning toward olive oil, coconut oil, other nut oils like walnut oil. They do a lot for anti-inflammatory effects and lowering blood pressure.
And when we have to have a sugar, honey is probably one of the best, isn't it?
I would say so.
Yeah.
Along with maple syrup.
Yeah.
But in
natural maple syrup.
But in small amounts.
Yeah.
And under no circumstances ever will you have high fructose corn syrup. Horrible for
like
the human metabolism. That's another reason why we have so many overweight people.
Yeah, it's in everything.
It's in everything. It's in everything that's processed.
Yeah.
Just about.
There you go. Everything that's processed
has
corn syrup.
Mm-hmm. So if you made a commitment to taking high fructose corn syrup out of your diet, you're making a huge cleanup effort go a long way. And also, no artificial sweeteners. I'm talking about aspartame, Splenda. They have really long lists of side effects. The list of side effects is as long as my arm. And they're just not good for long-term optimal health. And they keep you wanting more, and they keep you in the craving stage because they're teasing you and they're not satisfying your leptin. Mm-hmm. Your leptin gets all stirred up, but it's not getting satisfied, so it's making you want more. So, stevia also makes a very good sweetener that doesn't change your blood sugar at all, 0 glycemic index, and 0 change in the blood sugar.
Okay. Well, with the time we have left, I'm going to zero in on, because I have a list of questions here, and some of these questions have never been answered when we've had a show. So I want to ask you, how is food a great vehicle to empower your life?
Oh, Badeish. That is one of my favorite topics because, I believe that when we make a conscious commitment to stay conscious with our food choices and to follow those guidelines that I just gave you, mm-hmm. and to follow them as best you can, that what it does is it'll tend to highlight all of our needs. When you do that one thing, it's going to highlight all of your needs. And it'll tend to bring into view the areas that aren't working so smoothly. And so, if it's like I was saying, if you aren't sleeping well, why is that? If you don't have any energy, why is that? You can go get tested and find these things out. Or is there a psychic drain on you where you're giving away all your energy because of some reason? You should know. You need to bring it into consciousness where you're giving away all your energy and you're not keeping any for yourself and you're not doing any self-care. Doing those meals with those guidelines in the center of them, it's going to require that you become more conscious of the places where you're leaking. Right. What have you wanted but you haven't done yet? What are you passionate about that you never give any time to? It is going to call all of that up I want to see everybody living the kind of life that has a creative process in it. I want to see them having fun. I ask people, what are you doing for fun? And they look at me like I have 2 heads. They never even thought of it.
Well, yeah, because they've given up fun at a very young age, and that's the new culture that we have. I don't think that we're learning in our culture self-care. I mean, we hear about working out at the gym and looking thin, and look at all the models that we have for a non-realistic, I would say, model for things mm-hmm. That are real in life.